Beresfield Public School is steeped in history. It first began its humble beginnings in Hexham, later becoming Taro Public School, and finally Beresfield Public School. In the late 1870s, education was being provided in the Beresfield area by an Anglican school. The school at the time was called Hexham, and its only teacher was Samuel Viles. In 1879, the number of children at the school was 62, but only 43 were attending regularly. In early July 1879, Hexham resident George Weekly wrote to the Council of Education stating that the school was becoming too crowded and that most of the people wanted a new and bigger public school. In December 1879, the new school was approved, but would go ahead on a site nearer to Woodford, which is now Thornton. Samuel Viles continued in the old denominational school building until the 21st of September 1883, when he took possession of the new schoolroom. In this new location, the school was now called Upper Hexham Public School. The new brick buildings consisted of a schoolroom, 34 by 18 feet, in which most of the teaching took place, and a small classroom, about 14 by 11 feet, which was designed as a withdrawal area for religious instruction by visiting clergy. The main schoolroom floor was not flat like present-day classrooms, but stepped like a theatre floor. Desks were arranged on these steps to make it easier for pupils to see the teacher and the blackboard. In 1888, Samuel Viles asked the Department of Education to consider a name change. His reasons were that letters were staying at Hexham rather than coming to Taro Post Office. The local inspector of schools agreed, and the school then became known as Taro Public School. After Samuel Viles' wife died, his health began to deteriorate rapidly. In 1892, it was clear that he could not continue teaching, and they appointed his son Arthur as the new and second teacher of Taro Public School. Arthur remained at the school for 30 years and is our longest serving principal. The 1920s marked a new era for the school. In 1921, the Beresfield estate was subdivided and residential development was slowly beginning. It would now start to transform the rural nature of the area. Arthur Viles also retired, and the new principal was Albert Froud. By 1925, attendance had grown sufficiently large enough to warrant the appointment of an assistant teacher. So in June 1925, the school became a two-teacher school. Froud also became concerned that the name Taro Public School was becoming less and less suitable. In 1926, the Beresfield Progress Association asked the Department of Education to change the school's name from Taro to Beresfield. Even though the Inspector of Schools was not convinced, the school did change its name effective from the 20th November 1926. 1926 was also the year that the P&C Association was first formed. Empire Day was a very exciting day at school. It was the one day of the year when they celebrated their allegiance to the British Empire. Albert Proud had great visions for the school. He levelled the schoolroom floor and he extended the building by 16 feet so that he could change the room into 2 classrooms. He also extended the children's learning, incorporating other subjects and sporting teams. This is a typical reading book that children used in the 1930s. By 1937, the average attendance at the school had risen to over 90. New principal Ernest Lawrence pointed out to the Department of Education that Beresfield was continuing to grow and develop, and later in 1937 they received their 3rd classroom and teacher. These 3 children at our school took part in a fancy dress night to help celebrate Australia's 150th anniversary in 1938. Enrolments at the school were fairly stable during the 1940s at between 100 and 130. The birth rate, which had begun to pick up after 1935, was into its now well-known baby boom. During this period, Herbert Ainsworth was principal, and then in 1948, Bill Brown became principal. This is a picture of Bill Brown and his wife Doris, with our current oldest living pupil's mother in the background. In 1950, the attendance at Beresfield School was 150. 5 years later, it had reached 250. In 1954, when Mr. Richards was appointed principal, there was 1 infant and 3 primary classes. In 1957, an infants department was established across the road. At this stage, the school was divided into an infants and primary department. Each department occupied a separate site, with the primary on the new site and the infants on the original, where the old buildings were now in a deplorable condition. In the 1950s, children received reports in the middle and the end of each year. They simply marked a grade based on whether they were average or above or below, with a simple comment to their parents. 1958 saw the school celebrate its 75th birthday. In 1960, Beresfield School had a population of more than 500 pupils. There was also 12 permanent staff and 1 part-time. Mr. Richards was still the principal, but a teaching principal. In 1960, a deputy headmaster arrived. His name was Mr. Alan Chult. It was during Mr. Richards' time as headmaster that many of the school's traditions were commenced. The school badge depicted the first 2 sporting houses of Waratah and Wattle. Also the school motto, Live and Learn, was formulated during this time. In May 1963, approval was given to build 8 new classrooms and administration unit on the original site. This first stage was estimated to cost £87,000, and the original building was to be converted to a library. Primary children and staff occupied the new buildings in May 1965. The old primary buildings now became the infants department. On the 19th of November 1965, the new primary school was officially opened by the Minister of Education. Everyone was pleased with the new classrooms, especially the large amount of natural light, the extra space and the bright colour schemes. The only problem reported was the lack of heating in winter. 1967 marked a very important year for the school, with the appointment of the first teacher librarian, Miss Gatt. It also marked the retirement of Mr. Richards and the appointment of new principal, Mr. Herbert Holland. The school has had a history of a hard-working P&C body. Since the beginning, the community has always supported the school. This included an annual school fete where pupils gave splendid displays of percussion, folk dancing and maypole. Additionally, they were exposed to new learning experiences. This included producing a school magazine. In 1969, the primary staff were a mixture of both young and experienced teachers. School reports now consisted of a mark and the average mark for the class, with a simple comment to parents. An act of vandalism occurred on the 7th of July 1969, which resulted in a section of the infants department being burnt down. It severely damaged a staff room, office and 2 storerooms. One classroom was also severely water damaged. In 1970, Beresfield Primary School was only 5 years old, and again overcrowding began to occur. This was because the Commission estate had opened at Woodbury and Beresfield was the closest school. The population of Beresfield and Woodbury was increasing dramatically, and temporary accommodation was sought for infants and primary departments. Portable classrooms arrived at the school and were located both on the primary and infants' grounds. This only alleviated some of the problem, and a proposal for a public school at Woodbury was made. In the meantime, Beresfield Public School was divided into 2, one for the students of Woodbury and the other for those of Beresfield. Beresfield pupils and teachers occupied the new Beresfield buildings, while Woodbury pupils and teachers occupied the portable classrooms and some older classrooms behind the school. The schools had staggered recess and lunch times, but used the same facilities on the same site. Finally, in November 1972, the new wing was complete. It was a modern building with 4 new classrooms, storerooms and a fully equipped canteen. By 1973, the problem of overcrowding was lessened considerably with the opening of the new Woodbury Public School. The portable classrooms were then removed from the school grounds. Mr. Holland retired at the end of 1973 after spending 6 years at the school. He was also the last principal to occupy the principal's residence. In 1975, the school principal's residence, which had been built in 1882, was demolished and the area became an extra playground. New principal Mr. College arrived at the school in 1974 and was the first non-teaching principal. A dental clinic was erected on the grounds in 1977. The modern facility comprised of 2 dental chairs, a reception area, darkroom, waiting room and staff amenities. Book Week and Easter hat parades have always been popular at Beresfield. Reports were still either marks or grades with simple comments. The last principal in the 1970s was Ronald Feller. In 1980, Barry Reading was now the principal. 1981 saw the establishment of a school parliament featuring students from Year 6. Mrs. Evans commenced at our school in 1981 and is still a current member of staff. This was Mrs. Warwick's first year at Beresfield Public School, and she only recently retired in 2008. Mrs. Cave, formerly known as Mrs. Leggett, also began at Beresfield in 1982, and she will retire later this year. In 1982, enrolment reached a staggering 600 students. The school celebrated its 100th birthday in 1983. There was a full week of celebrations. Staff and students were presented with a special centenary medallion. A time capsule was buried to be unearthed in 2033 when the school is 150 years old. Period Costume Day saw teachers, pupils and parents dressed in period costumes. Children played games typical of those played in the early days of the school. In 1983 saw the establishment of the first support class with teacher Miss Wiley. Joe Bullen began in our school office in 1985 and just recently retired in 2008. In 1985, Frank Shaw became the new principal, closely followed by Tom Howard in 1987. The 1980s also saw the arrival of Frank Ferret. He created much excitement on his entrance. A unique feature of the school in the 80s and 90s was the major camps and excursions. Teacher Lloyd Crockett, who later became principal, played a major role in these events, some lasting up to 5 days in duration. Lloyd Crockett was now principal. By the early 90s, enrolments had declined to 350. A public meeting was conducted in 1991 to consider the proposal of moving K-2 from across the road onto the primary site. The vote was 96 for to 1 against. The move involved moving 2 classrooms from the old site onto the present. Just 2 pupil-free days were granted for the staff to make the move and reorganise the school. On November 12, the whole school celebrated one school altogether in a special ceremony. The 1990s saw Beresfield Public School enter the technology age. In 93, the school held a computer-a-thon where the computers were left on for 24 hours. In the late 90s, a shade cloth was added to the quadrangle to protect students from the sun. In 1999, vandals again set fire to a school building. This building was still on the old infant site, and afterwards the site was cleared in total. Plans were then set in place to sell the old site and build an assembly hall. In the meantime, part of the old site was leased to a private preschool called My Kindy. 1999 saw Lynn McSweeney become the next principal of Beresfield Public School. Lynn would be the first female principal, and she has only retired this year in 2008. In the year 2000, the school celebrated both the New Millennium and the Sydney Olympics. By the year 2003, many of the current staff were already at Beresfield. In 2004, the land that previously occupied the infants department was put up for sale. The property was subdivided for residential building. In 2004, Beresfield took part in their first ever Starstruck performance.
And remember that life is what you choose. Follow your dreams and do what you love to do. There are places you remember, the times you may recall, faces that refresh.
Our involvement still continues today.
May the thoughts that you
Year 6 farewells are usually a mixture of happiness and sadness.
You're the one to decide what you're gonna be.
It is an opportunity for students to dress up and spend a final evening with teachers and friends.
Follow your dreams, that's really all that you can do. And give it your best.
2006 saw the end of our temporary hall accommodation. Additionally, it was the end of an era for our long-standing canteen. Beresfield has continued its tradition of real-life education. Camps and excursions are a yearly event. Year 4 annually travel to the Aussie Bush Camp, Year 5 to the Blue Mountains and the Bathurst Goldfields, and Year 6 to our capital. The construction of the new hall created much disruption to the playground for nearly the entire year.
And remember that life is what you choose. Go home, follow your dreams and do it. Follow your dreams and do it.
But in 2007, our wonderful hall was finally complete.
What you love to do. What you love to do.
In 2007, the leadership program Equip was launched. Year 6 students led structured play activities at lunchtime.
Woke up this morning, I suddenly
In 2008, the old shade cloth was gone and a new steel cola area was built over the main quadrangle. Fruit break is now a daily occurrence at 10 a.m. The school's sporting houses were initially Waratah and Wattle. In 1967, with the growth of enrolments, 4 houses were now needed. These were red, gold, green and blue. In 1973, the houses were then given the name Holt for red, Cook for yellow, Lister for green and Bass for blue. But in 1992, when the school moved onto one site, the school parliament decided to make the same houses across the school. This is how we now come to have koalas as red, kangaroo green, possums yellow and platypus blue. This year in 2008, we celebrated the Beijing Olympics by having our own mini Olympic event. Students formed countries as teams and participated in many Olympic sporting events. Technology is integrated into all facets of the children's learning. At Beresfield, we have a fully equipped computer lab, as well as computers within classrooms. And as of this year, we have just received our first interactive whiteboard. Our children still do learn to read the traditional way. Volunteer parents and grandparents often assist with reading groups. Teachers' aides assist our children to reach their full potential. Reporting to parents is now a detailed account of children's learning across all the key learning areas. In 2008, we have a small but still very active P&C group. Our P&C raised much needed funds to buy resources for our school. Additionally, they provide a very healthy canteen for our school students. Our office is still the hub of the school, providing essential communications and administration. In recent years, we have obtained the services of an after-school care provider, assisting many families in our community with before and after-school care. Beresfield Public School now has 3 support classes. These classes provide a variety of learning experiences from academic to real life.
'Cause we're all in this together.
Now here we are in 2008, celebrating 125 years of education in the Beresfield area. Here together we have our eldest student, Mrs. Rennie Clifford, with our youngest student, Josie Pasima. People make schools, and one family that's had a long association with Beresfield is the Dyson family. Di Lewin is a living treasure of Beresfield Public School. Di has been a student, a parent volunteer, held most positions on the P&C, has worked in the office and is now one of our teachers' aides. Where would we be without our wonderful teachers, both past and present, our fantastic students and our supportive community? Happy birthday, Beresfield Public School.
Inside the lab, just waiting for the call. This earthquake weather has got me shaking inside. I'm high up and dry. Pictures of you, pictures of me, hung upon your wall for the world to see. Pictures of you, pictures of me, remind us all of what we used to be. the bottom